right, guys. Super happy to be here. Super pumped. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is Honest to God on AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. We've got a familiar bunch of people here. A week later, we're in the exact same clothes as last week, but hanging out live. It is 4:02 on Saturday, the date of today.
That's right.
And this show is being released. So this is really, really exciting. Good crew from, mostly from Hidden Lake. And then, where do you say you're based?
Sandy Springs, Georgia.
Okay, Duke of Sandy Springs. We got him here. All right, that's the last one. I'm going to stop.
It's all right. I don't even know what a Duke is. Is it like
gotta
a slam
play
dunk?
coup, man.
No?
Wait, has he never played coup?
He hasn't.
Oh,
no.
you don't get it because you never played coup.
Yeah.
You got to play coup, dude.
I've explained this to you multiple times.
The coup can take two
he says
unless
so
somebody.
many
The Duke can take three.
Unless there's a captain. Who can
No,
block.
you can always take three, no matter what, as long as
Wait,
you
I
have
thought
it.
the captain could block it.
No, it can't.
Are you sure?
100%, man.
We have you got a set of coup cards?
No, I left them in my car.
This is a legitimate game.
Yeah, super
I,
like a dog
I thought he was just ranting about nothing, and I'm like,
No,
what is this?
no,
Duke?
I've told this
No,
to
it
you
makes sense. The
multiple
Duke's the
times,
money
man.
guy in coup.
Yeah.
See, okay, that makes sense. Why didn't you say that?
I've said that multiple times, man. I don't know what you meant, but
No, we got a great show. We've got returning guests: Madeline, Jake, Megan, and the Duke of Sandy
Ryan.
Springs. Ryan.
Yes.
Duke Ryan. And then we got producer Julian, man.
I'm glad to be back. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with wearing the same clothes. Times are tough.
Dude, seriously.
Inflation.
You're just talking about Goodwill.
Hit up Goodwill. We
Goodwill.
talked about it on a show at some point.
Yeah.
And
no.
times are tough.
No, well, you're looking good. Doing a great job with those keys over there. You got the hang of it, man. You're killing it. You're no longer like our new producer. You're now our seasoned, like sophomore producer.
Sophomore producer.
Yeah, you're like moving.
Not the freaking new guy anymore.
Not natural, not like super duper there, but you're doing a better job than I ever could have in 1,000 years. So thanks, Julian.
Yeah, that's why they keep you as the talent. And
I'm just a pretty face, man. I just sit here and look pretty. That's weird. So let's pray. Anybody want to volunteer to pray? You can't pray again, Jake, because you killed it last time. You did a good job. Anybody else want to pray? Come on.
I can pray.
Yeah, you got it. You got it, Megan.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Yeah.
Come, Holy Spirit. Lord, I praise you and I thank you for this day. I thank you for the gift it is to be here. I thank you for each and every soul that is listening. Lord, I just ask that you come be with us today. Fill our minds with what you want us to hear. Lead us ever closer to you. Amen.
Amen.
Holy Spirit.
I'm going to give it's like an 89.6, but it rounds up to a 90, so it's an A.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
She's a girl, too, and I always grade them easier because, like, I've got all these daughters, and I've always just been,
it's all good. No offense taken.
Okay, good. I've got I have 4 girls ranging from an infant to a 9-year-old, and I watch them like working the I'm your daughter angle, right? Just like by virtue of my femininity, you're gonna give me whatever I want, and I still put up like token resistance because I feel like I have to, but it's useless. I give a talk to my kids. I work in education, right? I talk to a lot of high school kids on a regular basis, and my talk is basically, ladies, don't come cry about a grade or something because that's not fair. Because I'm not gonna give you the grade, but I'm gonna feel bad. It's gonna ruin my week if you come cry. And guys, if you come and cry, I will make you go to the bathroom and stay there until you're done crying, and then you can come out and talk to me, right? I've got a list of 7 reasons when it's okay for men to cry. We're not going to get into that. One of them is obviously your dog dies, or grouped in the same one, a dog in a book dies, because they're literally just reasons why I cry, and so I've decided to apply them universally. So anyway, you got an A for praying.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But you still have to give us one fun fact a piece. You don't get out for the 3 originally and then no more. Every episode we have to start with fun facts. Corporate changed it, so we're no longer doing 5, we're just doing 3. But returning guests only have to do 1. Are you ready, or you need a second?
Yeah. Maybe we start with Madeline.
That's a great idea. We started with her last time, didn't we? No, we started with Megan last time. Okay.
I did think of one in between. So I used to use this as my fun fact all the time, and then I forgot that it happened. So the St. Louis Art Museum has it's like a pretty big art museum for those who are unfamiliar. But I've actually had a piece in the St. Louis Art Museum.
That's super cool. Like a photograph?
So I do a lot of art. It's mixed media. I took pictures of 30 different women and then took pieces I called it the Picasso Project, took pieces of all of their faces and made it a completely different face. And it was a teen art exhibit. It was in like the basement in the very back, but
Still counts.
my claim to fame is that my piece of art was in the St. Louis Art Museum with like a little plaque that said my name, the title of the piece,
Cool.
little description of like what it is and how it existed. So yeah.
I have a portrait of me. This is going to sound made up nonsense. It's true. There's a portrait of me hung up in Dominican House of Studies in Washington, D.C. And it's like not for anything I've done, but I was asked to be the model for Peter of Brussels, who is a Dominican scholastic scholar from like a long time ago. And they didn't have any images of this guy at all. And a woman approached me at Mass and asked me if I would dress up in a Dominican habit. And so I dressed up in a Dominican habit, and I spent 2 hours like holding quills and like moving around in different directions and holding big books and all this stuff. And the portrait is just, it's me. It's weird. I do have a tonsure though. They gave me the little tonsure up there.
incredible.
So that's pretty neat. So if you're ever in the Dominican House of Studies, you'll see a picture of me in a Dominican habit with a dog like at my feet ripping up some nominalist heretical writings. It's really cool. Yeah. Jake, what you got?
My fun fact is that right now, my big goal for my life, like, I guess athletically from like a weightlifting standpoint, my not weightlifting, but my goal right now is to dunk by, it was Christmas, that didn't happen. Easter is the new goal, but we could push it back but by the end of 2024, I will be able to dunk on a 10-foot rim.
Nice. You a big basketball guy?
Oh yeah. I'm from Indiana originally, so
Okay.
it's in the blood.
Cool. Did you play in high school?
For a little bit, yeah. 2 years.
I went to my first ever NBA game like a couple weeks ago. It was fun.
Nice.
I watched the Hawks beat up on the Pistons. It's just kind of sad.
It is.
Yeah.
Tough time for Detroit, but they got the Lions, so it's all good.
Yeah. All right, Megan, what you got?
I think something that people typically don't know about me, but they find out pretty quickly, is my major is agribusiness horticulture, which
Okay.
a lot of people don't even know what that means.
Can't even pronounce it.
Plant stuff.
Plants, so like greenhouses, the gardening, that kind of thing. So
Let's go. What are you going to do with your agribusiness horticulture degree?
yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, cool. We grow a ton of food at our house. We're big. We live on like a small farm. We do all of our own meat products, and then we grow as much as we can. We still have to buy, unfortunately, non-animal products from the grocery store regularly, but all of our meat and eggs and all that is done in house.
That's so cool.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
All right, what you got?
Definitely not plants.
Ryan's anti-plant.
No. I mean, I'm actually, I can never be a vegetarian. But
I heard the opposite. I heard Ryan was a vegetarian not because he cares about animals, but because he actively hates plants.
that's right. Actually,
So he can cause them suffering. So he really don't know.
no. So one fun fact. I worked in a hair salon for 10 years.
No way.
My dad's hair salon for 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Like salon or barbershop?
Like a salon, like an institute where people learn how to cut hair.
No way.
Yeah, from 10 to 20.
Are
Yeah.
you really good with hair?
I know far too much. It's a problem if I can tell if a woman has box color in her hair. Like I no one should know how to,
Whoa.
but I do. So
My uncle, when he retired, he decided that he was going to become a barber. And he was in Florence, South Carolina. And the only barbering school anywhere near him was Betty's College of Barbering and Technology of Beauty, which was like this all-black woman barber shop. And they had classes. And so there's all these class pictures of my Uncle Mike, who's this tall, skinny white guy, and all of these like black woman hair salon ladies. And they loved him to death. And he's like a pro now. He can do every kind of hair in the world that exists. It's really neat. And so he knows how to do everything from like, styling your hair, right, a guy's hair, to like the fancy schmancy stuff. And yeah, he just cuts people's hair in his living room now. Still pretty cool.
yeah,
And I have a T-shirt that says Betty's College of Barbering and Technology of Beauty.
man, cut it out.
Yeah, isn't that neat? I get it. Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Got it.
Yeah. Do you want to do a fun fact, Julian? Last time you got mad at me because I didn't ask you if you had a fun fact.
Oh, I was very angry.
I could tell.
It was
It's been
heated.
simmering for the
I
last
turned-
week.
Turned red.
Yeah, we had a real falling out in the parking lot after the show.
Yeah, that's happened to you a few times, hasn't it? Yeah. No, actually, so one time when I was in college, I used Sun-In my luscious locks.
That is
Speaking
awful.
of hair.
Okay.
Yeah, it was rough and it did not look good, but we got it out thankfully, and I cut it off.
Did you? And you lost your luscious locks.
I did lose. Well, they were chopped off by the military, but
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of clippers for about $26
Nice.
in 2008. And I have never looked back. That's the last time I got a haircut from anybody other than me, was 2008.
and you still have them.
I do. So I have the same clippers. They're very loud now. They've gotten very loud. They sound dangerous, but they work. Yeah.
Have you cleaned them out?
I don't even know how to do that. No, they have a decade and some change of hair just in there. Yeah,
there's screws on top.
But I should bring them in. You can have a look at my clippers.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, get them working great for you.
That's actually the theme of today's episode: clipper repair and
that's right.
technology of beauty with Duke Ryan. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
We'll shave it for later.
Oh my God!
Can you just keep up the barber puns? I kind of dig those.
No.
Are there a lot of those?
There's a few. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll save them.
So this episode is kind of an interesting one because right before we got on air, we were saying like, what is this episode about? And we talked about sort of your backgrounds and everything, but I think we landed on youth ministry, that kind of stuff, right? I'm pretty passionate about this in particular. I was a youth minister for, I think, 8 years with the Archdiocese up in North Georgia.
That's a long time for a youth minister.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a buddy, like me and my buddy from college, both got asked to do the youth ministry. It was part-time, so we split it, right? And I mean, we were always together, but he said, I'll pay you this much a year. And we said, can you just pay both of us half that? And we had a great time. Tiny parish. I think we had probably at most maybe 20 consistent kids who were there every single week and who did the retreats and everything. I loved it. I actually loved how tiny it was. I ended up moving to our new place and it was about an hour away from the parish. And so it didn't work out. But that was up until a year and a half ago. So I love this. And you all actively work in youth ministry. I don't know. Do you
I still
interact
volunteer
with the kids a lot?
Yeah, on Sundays.
So I would love to just sort of kind of, I guess, big picture, talk about youth ministry done wrong and youth ministry done right. And we can take this whatever direction we want it to go. I mean, we have our audience is mostly young adults, 18 to 30 years old or whatever. And so I almost feel like the majority of the people who might be listening to this show and interested in youth ministry are people who are working in it actively or volunteering with it. And, yeah, I don't know. It's always fun to start with the bad stuff, though. So can we talk about what youth ministry done wrong looks like?
I can speak a little bit.
Can you design? Can somebody design for me a hypothetical awful youth ministry program without no actual parish names or anything? Don't say.
Yeah. I would say the worst example of youth ministry that's probably the most prominent is the youth ministry that doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is that 3 out of 4 parishes currently cannot afford to have a youth minister. And so a lot of people, what they'll do in the vacuum of that is like, well, we'll get a volunteer to do catechetics. And so they'll have great knowledge, which quite candidly is kind of redundant because the kids that go to that are the people that go to Catholic education.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, okay, here I am yet again, boring and wasting my time. And so I would say, to answer that, I don't think that there's enough youth ministry in most parishes.
I didn't realize you said 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4, and that's old information.
Right. That's wild. Mm-hmm. And I know that COVID was a big killer for a lot of the youth groups.
Correct.
I'm familiar with.
Yeah. About a third drop.
That's amazing. Yeah. You're a good stats guy. I like that.
Yeah. It keeps me up at night. So.
No, that's crazy. What are you guys' thoughts? Youth ministry done poorly. What does that look like?
Yeah, I was honestly going to say the same thing. It's that like the worst youth ministry is youth ministry not done at all. I like something that I've just noticed in doing youth ministry, especially in high school and college when I was doing these day retreats just in St. Louis in like these different parishes, is a lot of these teens just want to feel seen.
Yeah.
It was really interesting walking into groups where the teachers were like, this is the worst class. Like they like don't listen, like they don't, but like I would get into conversations with these teens. And as soon as I would make eye contact with them, treat them like they were a person with thoughts and feelings, they would just start talking to me. They would start telling me everything about their lives. They'd start asking me questions about the faith. And I met them that day. And so these teens just want to be invested in. And if there's no outlet for that, if like nobody's willing to invest them, no one's willing to look them in the eye, then like that is like the worst youth ministry program, is just not having one.
Yeah, we talked about this last episode, which will be probably a week ahead of this or a week behind this. So I want to rehash it a little bit about the importance of, and it sounds weird almost when you say it, but of community over catechesis, right? Mm-hmm. And catechesis is super important. We like catechesis. That's great. You should all know about your faith. You should dive deeper in. But when you're dealing with young people, especially high school, middle school age, right? That age group, you will get nowhere if you're treating this like it's, Mr. Russell's history class, right? It's not school, and it should be structured like school. It should be structured like community. How do you do that? I would love to talk a little bit about community building with young people through youth ministry. How do you do that?
Cater to their needs and go crazy. So a big thing that we do at LifeTeen, we're all LifeTeen missionaries here. We have a model called like gather, proclaim, break, send, which is a big part of things that we do in missions and as a youth ministry organization as well, with different resources that we put out. So it's kind of a 4-parter to like a successful life night or successful youth ministry. First being a gather, which is usually some sort of a game, but I think the bigger the better. It can look as big as like at camp we have a out of school course that can take up almost like 300 yards of area with muddy slides and like people running around going crazy, dance parties, slip and slide, kickball. Those things are like fun. It can be as simple as just like a game of 4 corners to start it off, or maybe like watching a big football game on Sunday night with like your youth group, like something like that. So like that can be part of it. That's like the gather, the first part. Then the proclaim, break, send is where like the catechesis comes in afterwards. So proclaim, usually somebody giving a talk or like the main meat of a session. A break, which usually ends up being a small group or some sort of like activity after that, and a send. As we leave this place, how can we continue what we learned today? How can we do something more? But I think the gather is a very like slept on and very important part of that, Like if you don't get the teens in there for the fun, then they're not going to come at all. So, the same place where I pie my youth minister in the face can be the same place that I like learn about like what it means to be Catholic. It's like a huge thing. So go crazy and cater their needs. Do what they want, do what's fun for them.
We would do the dumbest things in the whole world. It was so great. And we got all these traditions of dumb things. We had a prom that we did every year that was, everybody had like a budget of $5 or something. Going back to Goodwill. People would go to Goodwill and wear these awful, like the worst clothes ever. And it was just this dumb, eat a bunch of food and dance and whatever with like, 18 kids, right, in the basement youth room. And it was so much fun. And they loved it. It was that wholesome. That's a line that I always go back to is like what we call cheesy is usually just wholesome, but we're jaded and cynical, so we don't realize how wholesome and beautiful it is, right? And there's a hunger for it because it's really hard to find just like authentic, good, dumb fun anywhere anymore. Everything seems to be tinged a little bit with, I don't know, some brokenness. So no, that's cool. That's huge. Food is the most important part. That's my take. I think youth ministry done well usually involves food, and we would get the best kids in the world in there for food. I don't know any hot takes or hot tips on youth ministry in general and what does work. And I am going to go back to some what doesn't work stuff because I think that's really important. But in terms of building that community and bringing people together, any other thoughts?
I think that like this is kind of little, but it's actually huge, is just a willingness to like look silly.
Yeah.
Like youth ministry takes a lot of humility and just kind of like a confidence in yourself of like, this is the Lord's at this point. Like I'm just going to do like whatever. And we talk about when we go through training, like we call Mission Academy, where we like talk about how to minister. And one of the things we talk about in like ministry of presence is like, I'll do your thing if you do my thing, is like a mentality that a lot of teens have. It's like, if you're going to like explain the rules of a game and then you're going to step back and not play the game, and then you are going to explain adoration, like they're going to step back and not like enter into adoration. Right. So if you are like the craziest person, like playing the game with them, like you are doing like their thing, and then they'll do your thing and they'll like enter into like the session or into adoration. And it's just kind of like they're going to watch you, like whether or not you think like if you're a leader, like if you're a volunteer leader, if you're the youth minister, like the teens are going to be watching you, because whether they act like it or not, they look up to you. And so if you're not going to do like the silly little things, if you're not going to like sit down and talk to them at a meal, if you feel like you're acting like if you might have other important things to do, but if you act like there are more important things to do than the person in front of you, they're going to feel it and they're going to notice.
The fact that, and I'm sure I've struggled with this myself too, but the fact that there's so many people who work in youth ministry who for some reason seem to have some vanity tied to the opinion of 15-year-olds, right, is so lame. That's so dumb. Like, just be dumb and fun and real. I think speaking to them like they're people and not like they're, I'm not going to say peers, but speaking to them like they are capable of having real conversations about real things is huge. We would get into, I always say, like, I had a buddy who we worked together, Andrew Puttish, who he and I were youth ministers together forever, and we used to say, like, all right, we're gonna go make some kids like us so we can trick them into loving Jesus, right? That was like the goal. Like, we're gonna go do dumb stuff and we're gonna get them like us so we could trick them into falling in love with Christ and turning themselves over to him, right? And that's a long process that involves a whole lot of, like, just dumb, beautiful goodness. But a lot of it was, we would hit the big topics. We would get into the church's teaching on contraception, and I would have boys talks about pornography, and we would get into all of these things. And it was coming at them as like, hey, you're a person who's capable of having a real conversation like an adult. I'm going to talk to you like an adult. And that doesn't mean like talk to them like an adult, meaning like be explicit or use bad language or anything like that, but talk to them not as if they're a small child who you have to be really guarded around. And I get, especially in the church today, in the world today, having to be guarded and being careful and intentional about what you say. Obviously, we need to do that. But I think a lot of times what is actually us trying to be super duper careful is it causes young people to feel like they're being talked down to.
Totally.
That's my thought. Yeah. Hey, so how come a large percentage of DREs seem to actively dislike children? Have I have a thought on that? Have you had that experience? Maybe you haven't. I'm not saying I have in a parish. I'm just saying that's something that I've had a lot of conversations where you get a lot of pushback, especially with the youth ministry as opposed to the Sunday school little guys. Get a lot of pushback from DREs.
I think our industry's image needs to mature. And when I say that, I think that like what Madeline said really well, we have to go where they are. And so sometimes the perspective can almost be like you're touching the leper, and you're, it's a uncomfortable place for a lot of adults, I think, at times. And sometimes, it can be hard for you to wear your different hat. Like, man, I was just fun and like just hopped in the mud pit with the kids, and I ate like 19 pizzas with them, and I went to their football game, and I came up and I dressed like one of those inflatable guys or whatever, like something that can honor them. It can be hard for a youth minister to shift hats into a professional setting. I think that from whether it's a DRE or church leadership, I think that it's something that we need to, I think the ownership needs to be on the youth minister, just as they're pursuing a relationship, like we talked about, not just catechetics with your teens. You equally need to pursue a relationship with your staff. Yeah. And so
that's a great point, as opposed to just being sort of like trying to be the king of your own little kingdom.
No. And I think we need to be more interested in the needs of the DREs and more interested in the needs of the pastor and how youth ministry can really backfill and help. Because like you said, I think that people can downplay the capabilities of a teen. DRE, you need help for a volunteer. Man, I got, like Ben, who's 15, that wants to help, usher people to their pews. Like, I think we can start using, if we know, if we're in a stronger relationship with our staff.
Yeah, it is interesting how slow it seems like to me parishes will change, right? They seem to be very hesitant to change. And when you're saying we got all these kids and they really want to do this and we should, there's a lot of pushback for some reason. That's been my experience, and I've talked to other people. It's similar. That's interesting to me. I feel like we have everyone agrees that we have this desperate desire to hold on to our young people and to keep them in the church. But it feels to me like there's pushback on meeting them at their level and coming to them on their own terms. I don't know.
I think also with that, you just have to be okay with rejection, because totally. Like there's times that like, I go and talk to a teen and they want to have nothing to do with me. They're like, just write me off immediately. But it's like persistence, like keep going, be like, hey, like, oh, I really like your shoes today, or just like small things. So like, so then they have to engage in a conversation.
I know your mom's making you come here.
Yes, but like
don't
keep going. Like, not to give up on that teen that like is so hard and so difficult to get to, and like being okay with being like rejected, because maybe it's not like you that's going to speak to them, but maybe like you planted a seed of like
literally exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a lot of it is you're planting seeds that might not blossom for the next 20 years.
Exactly.
Right? And that's okay, because it's not about you. You've never saved a single soul, right? It's all about Christ, and the best you can do is the best that you can do. And at the end of the day, you have to like go to sleep at night, assuming that the Holy Spirit's going to take over. Maybe not in your time, but at some point that will hopefully happen, right?
Exactly.
I want to get into, and we don't have too much time left before we break, but I would really love to get into some success stories, especially with teens, because that's always fun to get into those kids who come and are super uninterested, and then 4 years later they're like, can I please like volunteer all my time and come do this? I had this girl who came, and it was first time I ever saw her was confirmation class, and mom made her go there and did not have any desire whatsoever to be a part of the church or whatever, who literally worked for free the last 2 years after she graduated, because she was like, I'm not going anywhere, so I'm just going to show up at every single one. You don't have to pay me. And like did the virtues training and just was basically like hired on for no money. And I think stories like that are beautiful. So I want to get into those.
John Henry.
Yep.
What over the break I thought of, they were talking about connecting with the kind of the quiet kid. And the little pro tip, I've done a lot of research into connecting with people, and the quiet ones generally think of themselves as weird. I mean, they'll say they're introvert, and there are introverts out there, but generally they just think, oh, I'm weird, nobody wants to talk to me. And even if somebody does, they clam up because they don't know what to say.
Right.
So I will just go in and I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm a little weird. I will talk about myself being weird.
Yeah, let me share my insecurities.
Open up. They feel bad because they're insecure about the same thing, and then they're like, "Oh, well, it's okay." And then boom, just instantaneous. It works every time, flawlessly.
Nice. That's actually a really good hot tip. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Take that with you, folks.
What I do is I just stare at my phone and scroll for hours in a crowd. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I want to talk about that a little bit, because that's something that came up on the break, is technology in general and how it is both a blessing and a horrible curse to everything in youth ministry. And I find myself hypocritical about it, because I'll go off on phones and how they're poison and addictive and whatever. And then I realize, man, I'm at the dinner table with my kids and I'm like reading the news or some lame thing on my phone. It's an issue that didn't even exist. 10
years.
Yeah. I was going to say the last 10 or 15 years, right? This massive issue has come up that affects everyone. I hate it when we pretend like this is a young people problem, because the number of like ancient blue-haired boomers who I see just like staring at their iPads all the time and but we're talking about youth ministry. What does that look like? How do you use technology? How do you use it well? How do you avoid it monopolizing your meetings? All that stuff. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure.
You got it.
I'll go first. I think just like, once again, things I think we've talked about, like not having it be such a rule. I think first off, there's not a way to like keep technology completely out of the hands of young people they're going to go to regardless. So maybe like teach them the proper way to use it and then go forward from there. I was talking with our chief advancement officer for LifeTeen, a guy named Steve Elgar, who was a youth minister for years in St. Louis, class act, great guy. Shout out Steve. So, and he was talking about a life night he ran where he was talking about kind of lies and like the problem with social media these days, and was showing like kind of sample posts to his teens, sample comments, breaking down what's like good and like not good to say, and then even like lies that we tell ourselves when we go into social media. I'm not the big social media guy myself. I'm pretty much off most of it, but I was there at a time, and I know like that's where people put their worth in these days, is online. First off, like shifting that worth away from like what some friend or follower says from you online, more into like first off what like God says about you, and then like good outlets as well, true friends, family. So I think just teaching like good I don't want to say tech literacy, because that's not like the term, but like good social media habits,
right.
I think to like fall into can be like a great topic for like a life night or youth ministry night to go and do. So
yeah, totally. I always feel like when I'll do some speaking gigs and confirmation retreats and stuff like that now, or even I'll go talk I was at Kennesaw State not too long ago. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods like less than a month now.
You are. I'm looking forward to it.
UGA, that'll be fun. But I do feel like when I'm standing up and I'm talking to people, regardless of the context, I'm competing with literally the sum total of all human knowledge that they're all holding in the palms of their hands. And that's tough. That's not a fun position to be in. And especially when you're talking about things that, I mean, hopefully, right, as a youth minister, that are worth hearing and worth saying and people need to hear. It's just a tough dynamic, which makes it awkward because this episode of Honest to God is brought to you by MySpace. You guys remember MySpace?
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
Thank you, Tom.
Making a comeback. So starting here is where comebacks start. Go make a MySpace account. It exists, I think. You want to make sure that your teens don't like social media? Get a MySpace. Yeah.
And if you're looking for a job or a volunteer opportunity, honest to God, could use some social media help. So you could develop our MySpace.
So honest to God, we should just do a hard social media push only on MySpace. If you were born after like 93, you have no idea what MySpace is. It was awful. Look it up. It's fun. It's an interesting story. He owns it again. Tom's got it again.
Does he really?
Yeah. So he sold it for like $100 million or whatever, and then it fell apart, right? And then he bought it back for like pennies
Totally.
a few years ago.
Well, I mean, the whole social media thing, like with teens and their relationship with technology, I mean, first of all, we started it. LifeTeen's been almost 40 years, and as of next year, technology is why we opened up in the middle school. And so we were just high school. We started Edge, and there's because we experienced an age compression that what kids were learning and being exposed to was being revealed a lot earlier, and quite honestly, even before now. But anyway, what we've seen is once you get past the relational barriers, right, and there's an element of trust, these kids are really, really smart, and they, like you just shared, you're competing against with all the knowledge in the world. And we just began LifeTeen, a pretty good relationship with Father Robert Spitzer, who's a great physicist and PhD. He's one of the he's debated Stephen Hawking, a lot of the literature he has there talks about a scientific proof for God. And I think that there's a lot of ways where we can underestimate the kid's potential and real hunger for truth. Right. And I think once we get through those relational needs, we can start talking about these big deals that with science and religion. Well, that's the beauty of it, right? One of the beauties of Catholicism is that we can go down all those rabbit holes. We're a smart religion. We're never saying you just have to believe that. Just shut up and believe it, right? Yeah. And there's a beauty to that because as humans we are ordered towards truth and we want that. I had a conversation with a young woman a while back who had left the faith, and she was a close friend of mine and a long time ago, and we were having this conversation, and what I said was, well, I firmly believe that if you just are honestly searching for truth, like, go search, but be honest about it because you're gonna come back, right? And that's not arrogance. That's true, right? That's a fact. And I think, once again, talking to kids like they're capable of, when I say kids, I mean young people, right? The high school students, middle school students, like they're capable of wrestling with those questions and having this. It's so cool. And they get so excited. They do. And I'm sure, girls do too, but I'm just so used to working with these boys and seeing them be like, oh my gosh, wait, no way. And it starts that intellectual conversion that once again will hopefully move to a conversion of heart eventually. So what have, in any youth ministry, any programs that you guys have run, do you have a big presence on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or now MySpace, now they sponsored Honest to God, making the big comeback? Do you do? Yeah, we get about, on each platform we have in the neighborhood, about 100,000 followers. LifeTeen does? Yeah, we get about 500,000 views on our website a week. That's huge. Yeah, so. Technology as a means for evangelization, I feel like we have pretty recently gotten much better at that as a church. I mean, you've got your, it feels weird calling them celebrities, but like your Catholic celebrities, right? Your Father Mikes and your Jason Everetts and your Matt Frads and your, like, those kind of guys who have really like blown up lately. I mean, it's awesome. I teach a theology class, and I literally can now go on and type in free will Catholic, and it's like, oh, cool. Here's Father Mike giving a really awesome, down to earth, like 10th grade reading level kind of explanation of this that I'm totally going to rip off and then go tell the kids to act like I'm just had all these great ideas. I usually give Father Mike credit. Yeah. And one of the I guess they're college students at my UGA came up to me and she goes, "Hey, Julian, you're becoming Catholic royalty. You know that? What's Catholic royalty?" And she said, "Well, like the Catholic celebrities," but she didn't want to use the term celebrity for the Catholics because we just proclaim a different
image.
As my as I speak on AM radio waves, reaching the ears of tens of people across the world, I always tell people I'm an R-list celebrity, which is like one above an S-list celebrity, which is somebody who like played a sport in middle school and got their name on the back of a T-shirt. So I'm right above that. Yeah, isn't that neat?
It's Catholic royalty in my book.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Catholic royalty. I feel like that's worse somehow. I don't know. No.
We have the Duke here.
We do have a literal royal in our midst.
No.
Duke of Sandy Springs.
The opposite of that.
Something you brought up over the break that I think is worth digging into. If you're one of those 3 out of 4 churches that does not have a youth ministry program, what do you do? Just offer your children up to Moloch? Like, I mean, there's got to be something that we do here, right? What is it?
I mean, outside of taking a serious time in your prayer time to really look at what young life has God put into your life to go minister and get to know. Outside of that, one of the things that we launched is a program called Kickstart. So it's $50 a month, but it's basically access to how do you build a grassroots youth ministry without a budget. So if you let's say you and a couple of families know maybe 10 up to 25 kids. It just takes 3 volunteers, right, to be able to get a somewhat of a grassroots youth ministry going. So I think foundationally, the one-on-one's great, but you've heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise kids. Mm-hmm. And so when you have those adults outside of the parent, I mean, we've seen retention in the neighborhood of 80% of kids that come through will remain Catholic after college is in that 80 percentile. And a big part of that is because you have people outside of the parents and reinforcing the faith.
So that I think is so huge, right? I have my boss actually uses the phrase all the time. You are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time around. Mm-hmm. And one of the big goals we always set forth when I did youth ministry was, once again, not so much catechesis, but more helping kids to realize that they're not the only human beings on earth who think this way, whose standards are this, who take their dignity seriously, who believe in these moral teachings, right? And it is amazing what can happen when even a kid who spends 5 days a week in some big public penitentiary masquerading as a school, right, being marched around the hallways and indoctrinated by their phones and all the other kids in the media and Hollywood and all this stuff, right, our whole broken culture. When you put those kids in a group of like normal, regular teenage kids and some adults who are not mom and dad, who are saying and trying to
take an interest in you.
Yeah. And with the same moral backbone, right? With the same foundation in faith, they realize for the first time, I'm not the only kid ever who does this. My parents aren't just freaks. And, because I think they do. I remember being that kid and having this mentality that my parents do this, therefore they must be the only people who ever do this, right? And we're weird and I'm different and whatever. That's cool. That's really big. So what's the website?
It's called Kickstart. Okay. So if you go to LifeTeen.com or if you just Google LifeTeen Kickstart, it's one of the best kept secrets that we have in our arsenal. I mean, seriously. Yeah. Well, it just launched last year. Okay. But it's highly dynamic. You can use it a lot, and we give, if you need a free sample, just send us a note and we're happy to do that. So.
And what is it? Like, what does it do? What does Kickstart actually?
So it's all about, Jake mentioned earlier how we have a model of a gather activity, a proclaim, of some sort of church teaching, a break in a sense. So we try to emulate a model without the restrictions of you have no budget, you have no people to run it, you don't have a space. If you wanted to do this in your home, if you are able to get the church hall, whatever, we try to give you every step along the way where you have a small group of kids that might be 5 people up to 25 people. So
one thing that I was really, really great during COVID, and I'm not employed by the Archdiocese anymore, so I can say this. We had all these kids who were really hungry for youth group, and everything got shut down. Actually, fun fact, it got shut down while we were on our beach retreat. And we literally, we're checking our email that day, saw that email, just closed the laptop and had a great beach retreat. But when we got back, we said, all right, guys, we can't have youth group anymore, right? We're not going to violate what the bishop's telling us to do. We can't have youth group anymore. We're not meeting at the church, whatever. You guys want to have Bible study? You can have Bible study. We can go over to somebody's house. I'll swing by, right? But it's not youth group. And I said, I want to make it really clear. We're not trying to be shady, guys. I'm just saying, it can't be an official youth, like an official church activity, but you can still all get together. Me or Andrew or whatever, as long as your parents are cool with it, we'll sit out on your back deck, we'll read the Bible, we'll talk, and then 99% or 90% of it was screwing around and being dumb and eating food and laughing and telling jokes and a movie afterwards or whatever. But we had all these 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who really wanted to read the Bible and talk about it. And so we did that, and we kept that going, and it was great for those kids. Just a big fan of that community and getting together, even if it's not officially a church-sponsored youth event. Cool. Julian, you had a music hot take, I think.
I did. One of the things that I grew up enjoying about youth group was music. We had a great band at my church, and they were actually, nobody's from here, so there was a retreat that we would go on every summer called Sunfest, and we would go to the Fort Walton Beach. It was every parish in the Archdiocese was invited, and they had an amazing band, a great setup, and there would be talks, and one of the highlights for everybody was always music. And it was praise, kind of more Protestant-y type of music, but it was a really good time, and it really helped us kind of connect and all be together in a healthy way.
Yeah, you mentioned this often. I'm sure I've shared this before. I'm not a big praise and worship guy. I don't like it. But as I've gotten older, right, as I've gotten more mature, not just because I'm older, but just because I think I've grown a lot in my faith and my understanding of this, the line that I always go back to that I said earlier was that liturgical preference does not equal orthodoxy. And I realize that just because John Henry doesn't love something doesn't mean that it's bad. And working in youth ministry helped me a lot with that, because I would go to the Steubenville retreats. I graduated from Franciscan. But I didn't like the praise and worship stuff. I just kind of thought it was hokey. I had this bad taste in my mouth. And then I went with all these kids, and I'm keeping my opinions to myself, because we just went to Steubenville, and there were all these beautiful experiences and these beautiful stories, and you have that time where you sort of powwow after adoration and then the praise and worship. And I realized, like, man, I need to just keep my mouth shut, because just because it didn't work for me particularly does not make it bad at all. I mean, I've really come to appreciate it. Still don't love it. It's not my preference, but who cares? Right. Everything doesn't have to work for everybody.
That's right. I mean, the power of music can just reach the depths of the soul. It really can. It can pierce through any walls that you have there, especially if everybody's singing and the lights are down. It can just allow you to just, hey, I don't care about who's around me, and just allow God to just work in you. And that I found that through music, especially as a younger person now. As I've grown and matured, it's different, but in my youth.
And that's okay too, though, right? I mean, you can sort of have that time and place for this. Sorry, I'm monopolizing everything with Julia. I don't know. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on, I would say, because you're probably working in ministry, you probably get pushback from fuddy-duddies like me who are like, "Oh, this is too Protestant, whatever," and that's a bad take. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you respond to that?
Well, I'd love for them to speak, because I mean they do praise and worship is a vital part of camp experience for teens and for a lot of our programming. Maybe if I could speak to the parish level first, and then go into like what we do at camp. So, Julian, as you mentioned, like, music has the potential to kind of target you. I think the reality for most parishes, music needs to be done well, and so you often don't have the staff to make even the organ, like to make it great. Like, I mean, the amount of times I see Agnes flipping through the pages and getting the key, so music can be a distraction in whatever expression that is. But the potential for it, I mean, in the contemporary sense for music writers, Ed Boldock, who does St. Anne's in Marietta, he would say there's three things I look for in music. And I want it to be singable for the people participating. I want it to be simple to understand, and I want it to be spiritual. So obviously Catholic. And so I think if a church is really looking at their music program, whichever flavor you're going to do shoot for quality.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with all that you said there. And also, contemporary music's not necessarily for everybody. And we know that as well. But yeah, at camp, we have lots of more experience, adoration experiences, where we do where the lights are low and the spotlight's on the monstrance, and then we're having that praise and worship music, and I think I've just seen so much of the beauty of like teens being able to just like really just like let go of everything that's like dark, so they can feel free, like they can cry if they need to, and like let out any emotion that they don't
tears.
Yes,
yes.
Lots of tears, seen lots of tears over the years, but it's just like a beautiful thing. And like even if like you don't want to like put your hands in the air or anything, like you're still free to like sit there in the presence of the Lord.
Right.
And I don't think the music typically like causes much of a distraction, but just anything enhances the prayer.
I've never thought about it from that point, but the idea of it almost acting as like not even from an enhancing prayer, but as a like sort of cloak where you're no longer, everyone's not looking at you and paying attention to you because there's music and it's dark and nobody can see me. That's interesting. Yeah. That allows you to be a lot more vulnerable and do what you feel like you ought to do there without having to worry about judgment. It really like downplays your vanity in a big way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm probably in the minority on this, but for myself, I can speak of like the typical like church hymns you grew up with, like Nancy the organist, though, like the Faith of Our Fathers, Shepherd Me, O God, Gather Us In. I think those are all bangers, personally. Like, I love those.
That is the hottest hot take I've heard.
I love being at LifeTeen and listening to like contemporary music. That's what the teens love, but I like miss some of the organ music. That being said, growing up, I remember getting to a point by like 8th grade or so where I was like, all right, I need something a little bit more. You go to the LifeTeen masses, which a lot of parishes are starting to have now, 5:30 Sunday nights. They get the rock and roll, the drums out, and like the guitar, and like that was cool. And I think that is cool for a high school student, and that's what a lot of the contemporary music now has and can have, with like Matt Maher forever ago now. But now you have like we were talking earlier with the Hillsong, a lot of like Protestant worship groups, but like can still have like very been used easily in Catholic masses, for the most part. So I'm here for that 100%. As well, I know it's not for everybody, but that like appeals to a teen. They don't want to. It's not going to be like the coolest thing for them to listen to Faith of Our Fathers as much as it's going to hurt me. Shout out Feast Day conversion of Paul a couple weeks ago, but. Yeah, it's. I think it's just good to like have music that like can speak to them a little bit more. Talking about conversion and stuff, and just like the Holy Spirit working. So contemporary music is great. I listen to it more myself as well. But yeah, I'm on the outskirts as well, missing the traditional worship music. But that's definitely what high school students like now.
I think the church should reinstate book bannings, and the only book that they should ban would be the Gather hymnal. That's my hot take.
I would disagree with that, Todd. The Gather hymnal is awesome, but sometimes I have a group of college students that will get together and like after we've like played euchre enough times, and from the Midwest originally, and like we've like had a couple beers, like we start like going through like Marty Hagen, who has a big list on Spotify of all these old like Gather Us In, and we start singing them. So that's like fun for me, once again, minority. But
if I were in charge of church music, I spent a large amount of time as a younger man going to like backwoods Black Baptist churches in South Georgia. That's the music I would have. I want the choir. I want clapping. I like that. I like that a lot. I'd really get into that, which is kind of like, I guess, counter to what I was saying earlier. Because I mean, right now I love a school of choir. I mean, all that. But man, you give me like, I don't know, 14 kind of chubby middle-aged ladies up there clapping and hallelujah and in the middle of, oh man, all day. I'll take that.
I also think that with LifeTeen, we do a good job of like incorporating like all aspects. Like we could be singing contemporary songs at mass, but also like the mass parts are in Latin.
Right.
So like I think we do a good job of like balancing it.
Which is charismatic.
Whoa, did you just make that up?
No, I heard it on Reddit.
Oh, that was really good. It was really good. Yeah.
But I think it's cool to have like different aspects, because like not one is correct. Like they're all good. So like why not utilize them all?
Not to change the subject, but just for the record, we got to go back in and edit where he said Reddit and change it to MySpace. He heard it on MySpace.
We'll make a note of that.
Sorry, Tom.
Brought to you by MySpace. He's a big fan.
You guys can retcon this though, right?
We'll change it all. All right, we're about to do cards in a minute, but I want to make sure before we do, I would love to end with state of modern teens, positives only. Best things about this generation of young people, because they get crapped on all the time. Gen Z gets kicked in the teeth constantly. And I'll go first. I'm a millennial. I was born in 89. My parents were both boomers. They still are. And I think my generation was obnoxiously apathetic about everything. All the jokes about everything were like, this is like nihilistic lame nothingness, right? I think we were very whiny about a lot of stuff, and I count myself in all this. I'm not saying I'm immune to any of this. And I think that the younger generation of kids care really hard about the things they care about, even if I disagree with the things, right? The young Catholics that I run into who care about their faith, who are 15, 16, 17 years old, are on fire, sometimes to the point that I'm like, dude, you gotta calm down a little bit. Like, you can't say stuff like that out loud. And I think that's cool. I think it's really cool that they have passion and burn hard for things. Like I said, I give a lot of talks, and I got a lot of negative feedback one time when I said that I would rather my son join ISIS than be an empty nothing person who doesn't care about anything except for some football team and his lawn. And the whole idea was because, like, at least then he's got a fire and a passion that's burning. That fire you can use. The apathy is useless. And Jesus agrees with me, right? He'll spew the lukewarm from his mouth. And I love that about sort of modern teens, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar in just the fact that I think that modern teens like really desire the truth. They're not willing to be lied to. I think that comes a lot with just the exposure to media and like having all of the world's knowledge in a little brick in their pocket at all times. But they want the truth, and like, yeah, they're just not willing to be lied to. And I think that like that pursuit of truth is like something that's really beautiful. And yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts?
I think just going with that, they're just like so fierce and they're not afraid to like speak their mind, which is really cool. Like, they're going to tell you how it is most of the time. And I think that, whenever they like cling to something, they cling to it hard. I'm just like thinking of like Taylor Swift fans. There's like so many of them, but like when they like love something, they're passionate about it and they like stick to it, and like, they just really go all in.
The official position of honest to God is that Taylor Swift is actually a witch. Like, I like some of her music. Some of her music is really like good and catchy. But once again, literally a witch has said that out loud, just a reminder out there for the airwaves.
Yes.
Come at me.
Check out the episode that's linked below.
Oh, wait, we actually do a whole episode where we basically spend like half of it talking about
I actually would love to see
Taylor Swift is a witch who says she's a witch because she's a witch. Okay. Not in a fun, cutesy pootsy, hocus pocus kind of way either, like the legit one. Cool. So let's do these cards for children now. What is the most important event that has happened in your life? Okay. All right. Now, the obvious answer that I should go with is marriage. Is marry my bride, but I'm not going to say that one. Because it's not true. The most important thing I ever did, I think I've talked about this on the show before, I'm not sure, is when I was 14 years old, I stole a purple Jeep Grand Cherokee from my girlfriend's mom. And that was the most important thing I ever did, because as a result, I got arrested. And as a result, I got sent to another school an hour away from where I lived. And as a result, I met a Presbyterian minister who was my teacher, who convinced me that Christianity made some sense. And from there, I became a Catholic. And from there, I went to the Catholic school that I went to, thus meeting my wife, the mother of my 5 children and counting. And that was the most significant thing that I've ever done. And praise God. God was with me 100%. The Holy Spirit, I swear, he left that thing unlocked and those keys in the visor just so I could start this chain of events. And now my children exist, and I'm married and desperately in love with my beautiful bride. So, boom.
Love it.
Who's up?
If you owned a restaurant, what type of foods would you serve and why? I would own a coffee shop. Not only does it have the best margins, it would be because I recently had a friend that has a coffee shop in Tampa called Cup Coffee. They employ handicapped people. Cool. Yeah. So I would love to do something like that.
We just got pizza the other day from a pizza place in town called Sliceability.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was the same thing. It was totally like everyone who worked it. They have managers, obviously, but everyone who's working has some sort of a handicap, and it's just the most beautiful, wonderful place in the world.
Really dignity.
Yeah. None of mine were really great, but this one's kind of funny. What is the worst punishment you have ever received? Nice. So, Mom, if you're listening, I still love you. It was good for me, but I don't remember all my punishments, but I do vividly remember anytime I as a small child would bite or say or talk back to my parents, they'd put vinegar in my mouth.
Nice. Okay.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
Or soap. Not good.
Yeah. Very Christmas story.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to do at the beach? Million great answers. I'm going to go with throw a baseball or a tennis ball. Works as well to second place, drink a beer.
Great. You can do both at the same time at the beach.
You can.
That's what's great about it. Yeah.
Not play mermaids.
Sorry.
Who is your favorite musician or band? My favorite musician is Chris Renzema. So we were talking about music.
Glad you didn't say Taylor Swift, or I would have had to do the whole rant.
That would have been very interesting. I would not have just jumped right in there. But Chris Renzema, my favorite musician.
Cool. Julian, what you got?
Okay, so mine is, if you were school's principal, what would be the first thing that you would do?
I've been there.
You have been there.
Require oaths of fidelity to the magisterium.
So technically, the first thing I would do is fire everybody who's in the teachers union.
That's fair. Yeah.
But no, what I would actually do is change the school lunches. I've found that there's such a value in the food that we eat, and I've actually seen there's a lot kind of surfacing in the Catholic royalty about the carnivore diet. That's kind of coming up a lot, and my mom has led me into that. So, the food that the kids eat, I think, would be what I would change and implement a better, stricter food policy.
We got a friend who does a carnivore diet, and it's solved so many problems.
Yeah,
No vegetables, right?
Heard.
It's all animal products.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you wouldn't like it because you couldn't hurt plants.
She wouldn't like it either.
All right. That's fantastic, guys. Thank y'all so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate y'all coming down or coming up mostly, right? No, down. Down. Yes, from Dahlonega. This has been a blast, y'all. Thanks so much. Producer Julian, you killed it. Ladies and gentlemen, dear listeners, dear viewers, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been Honest to God on AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. Producer Julian,
Signing off.
over and out.